value equations and inequalities. Okay, so equations have an equal sign in them. Inequalities are less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. So some problems are going to be equations, and some problems are going to be inequalities. Okay, so absolute value, I know you've seen this before. Absolute value are they put these straight lines around the problem. Like they would put absolute value of x equals 2. And this problem would say like solve this equation. Okay, so you have to remember what absolute value is. Absolute value is a distance. So they're trying to figure out something that equals 2. Basically, you can think of a number line. Absolute value is like distance from 0. So they're trying to get you to figure out like 2, the number 2 is literally 2 spaces away from 0. Okay, so it's like a distance. You want to think of it as kind of a distance. So yeah, this number 2 right here, yeah, that's like on a number line 2 is 2 spaces away from 0. But so is negative 2. Negative 2 is also 2 away from 0. So when they're asking what's the absolute value of x, what's x going to be, absolute value of x equals 2, the answer is 2 and negative 2. X equals 2 and x equals negative 2. Because you can take absolute value of 2, and that's 2, and absolute value of negative 2 is also 2. So there are 2 answers for that, 2 and negative 2. So when you're going to solve a problem, when you're going to solve an absolute value problem, you want to equal it to this number that says 2, and then you want to also equal it to the opposite of that, to negative 2. So here's another example. Like if you have 2x minus 3, absolute value of that equals 11. So you just have to be prepared that there's going to be 2 answers to this. There's going to be more than one way to solve this. You can do 2x minus 3 equals 11, and you can do 2x minus 3 equals negative 11. So sometimes I like to write them, if you get in this habit, I think it's kind of cool. I like to write the problem as written, like this could equal 11, and it could equal negative 11. So I write it kind of like a double problem like this. You get rid of those absolute value signs and you just have 2x minus 3 equals 11 and 2x minus 3 equals negative 11. Because then when you solve it, you would focus on the center of this problem and you have to add 3. So you add 3 over here, you add 3 on both ends. Okay, so then negative 11 plus 3 is negative 8. And 11 plus 3 is 14. Then you divide by 2. X equals 7, and x equals negative 4. So when you type them into the computer, they're going to want you to type your answer. It says separate with a comma. So yeah, it'll say like x equals, you're going to put 7, comma, negative 4. So you get 2 answers. Okay, so those are absolute value equations that you have to set up. Okay, so let's try another one. Let's say you have, I'll put negative 5, absolute value 1 minus 4x, and then I'll put plus 15 equals 0. All right, let me move my camera down a little bit. Okay, so next problem right here. All right, when you're going to solve an absolute value problem, again, here's your absolute value problem right here. It's the absolute value. You need to get the absolute value part alone. If you're going to solve it, you need to get that alone. So the part that's in the lines, this part, this whole thing right here, if you're going to try to solve the equation, you need to get that alone. So you're going to have to subtract 15, bring that over to the other side. So then you have negative 5, 1 minus 4x equals negative 15. So again, this part you have to get alone. So now you have to divide by negative 5. Divide by negative 5. So now you have 1 minus 4x in the absolute value lines equals 3. Well, now we're to the point where it was kind of like the previous one. You have to get rid of the absolute value signs. So to get rid of these lines, that's how we did it up here. Like you started with lines before. To get rid of those lines, so you equal the problem to 11 and negative 11. Well, this one here, to get rid of these lines, you're going to write 1 minus 4x equals 3, and it equals negative 3. Because you can take the absolute value of negative 3 and get 3. So you keep going, you subtract 1 from each side. So you have negative 4. These 1s will cancel. So negative 4 equals negative 4x equals 2. Divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4 everywhere. See if you just do it to all three parts. Okay, then you'll get x equals, let's see what our answers are. That would be 1, and if you divide this, that's negative 1/2. See, 2 over 4, that reduces down to negative 1/2. So there's your answers for that. Okay, so that's absolute value equations. Okay, now you're going to have also some inequalities. So let's switch gears, and we'll try some absolute value inequalities. All right. Okay, so next, absolute value inequalities. Okay, so let's try a problem that says 5 minus 2x is greater than let's try greater than 7. Okay, so again you have these absolute value lines. So you have to get rid of the absolute value lines. So you put 5 minus 2x is greater than 7. And this symbol, you put another symbol like that over here. It has to point the same way also. It's the same way. And you put negative 7. You put the same symbol, copy it over here, and then switch it to negative 7. Then you do the problem like before, subtract 5. So that'd be negative 12 over here. You'd have negative 2x, and that'd be 2. Okay, now you have to divide by negative 2. you have to divide by a negative. When you divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality. This is a greater than sign, those are going to flip. So we're going to divide that, that'd be 6, this will flip this way, that'll be x in the middle, flip this one, 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. Okay, now we need to look at what this means, like look at the graph. Sometimes they have you graph it. So this one is saying 6 less than x. That's the same as x is greater than 6. And then the other one is and there's another one, and x is less than negative 1. So you have like both of these to graph. Okay, so this one here, yeah, it says 6 less than x. That's like x is greater than 6. You can flip it around so you know how to shade it. X is greater than 6. That would go like this. Okay? And then you go this way. X is less than, it's not colored in. These are open circles. That goes down that way. Okay, so this goes down forever. This goes down, shades forever this way. So then they're going to ask you to write your answer in interval notation. So the answer to this is that this graph shades down forever to negative infinity and goes up to negative 1. And, so you put a union, because and there's a second part, and this side of the graph goes from 6 to infinity. There's your answer for this one in interval notation. Okay, we're going to try one more, just to practice one more time. Okay, one more. Let's say you have 2x plus 6. Big fraction one this time, less than 2. Okay, so again, when you see these absolute value lines, you have to get rid of them. So you have to rewrite this thing. You have to do 2x plus 6 all over 3 less than 2. And then in front, put another one of these less than signs. Don't have it do it the exact same. And then put negative 2. Okay, now you have a fraction here. So you have to get rid of fractions. How do you get rid of the fraction? Well, a fraction, that means like divide by 3, so you have to multiply by 3. Times by 3, times by 3. Times by 3, you know, that'll just get rid of the 3 in the middle. You have to multiply by 3. Okay, so now you have negative 6 less than 2x plus 6 less than 6. Subtract 6. Now you have negative 12 less than 2x less than 0. Divide by 2. So you get negative 6 less than x less than 0. Okay, so I did all the calculations. Again, you could graph this thing. This first one, it says negative 6 less than x. That means x is greater than negative 6. And the other one is x less than 0. You're trying to graph those. Okay, like come up here and let's graph it. Okay, so I'll just make my number line. X is greater than negative 6. So here's negative 6, and you're supposed to go greater than that. And you have another answer. X is less than 0. Here's 0. You're going lower than 0. So this happens to meet in the middle. You're supposed to graph greater than the 6 and this answer and this answer. So they meet in the middle. So you have to write your answer in interval notation. That would be that your graph goes from negative 6 up to 0. So if these are open circles, if these are not underlined, they're just parentheses. If this is underlined, if this would have been underlined, then they would have been the squared off brackets around it. Okay? So that's what your assignment's like. Your assignment's on the My Math Lab. All assignments, it's called Absolute Value. So work on your Absolute Value assignment today.